After listening to our powerful stories of innovation, the innovations that happened in the villages, in the communities of India, Nepal, Malaysia, now it's time to really understand what's next. And that next is financing and sustaining the care reform. That's very crucial for us to keep taking such powerful innovations forward. That is why this session is now focused on amplifying and nurturing innovation and what role philanthropy has. For this session, I would like to invite two amazing speakers in the room. Dr. Hartini Zainudin, a child rights advocate, co-founder of Yayasan Chow and founder of Madhya's Gift, driving positive change in child protection and child rights for marginalized children. She bridges philanthropy, policy reform, and compassion to reimagine systems where every child belongs. Her work aims to transform charity into change, from prevention to protection, and from rescue to dignity. Dr. Hartini, can we have you, please? Thank you. Please join me to welcome our second speaker, Mr. Rishad Surti, manager at DASRA, India, catalyzing strategic philanthropy and a US Department of State Professional Fellow. He leads the Transform Neve Collective, supported by UBS Foundation, advancing prevention first and family-based care to strengthen India's childcare system. With prior experience across government and UNDP, he brings over 9 years of experience driving partnerships for sustainable development. Please welcome Mr. Surti. This session is for half an hour, but very important session, reflecting on the stories of innovation and how we can sustain the financing. So I would like to request Tenny to please come over and share your reflection. Thank you. Do you need this? And this is the... Be careful.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone had a nice lunch. Yeah? How good is Malaysian food? Pretty good, right? It's good. So anyway, thank you to the organizers for inviting me here this afternoon. I swear that we need more than half an hour to talk about a very important part in ensuring the sustainability and scalability of the programs that we're talking about. Never mind the fact that we're talking about affordability and accessibility as well. So all these T's need funding. So if ever I get invited back to the next session on philanthropy, can we have it longer than half an hour? Simply because I think there's so many things that we can learn from one another and so many things that we can do. Having said that, I will start since we only have half an hour. So why must we care? Oh yeah, I have the clicker. Okay. So why must we care? So in session 5, we talked about and we listened to the innovative stories on early childhood development, parent-led community-based models. We heard about family strengthening, parenting support and inclusive social protection. And we heard about inclusive social protection and about safety nets and inclusive family separation. And then in session 6, we heard about kinship care, we heard about foster care, we heard about adoption reform, and we heard about care experience voices, where young people with lived experiences talk about reform agendas. So why must we care? I take you to the quotes. The test of the morality of a society is what it does for its children or what it doesn't do for its children, which is why we are here for the next 2 days. Why philanthropy matters? Because government creates frameworks, because communities provide love, and philanthropy provides that bridge, which brings us to different ways in which we can push the envelope, be bold, be brave, be innovative. We talk about risk capitals for new models. We talk about patience for long-term reform. We talk about system investments beyond projects, which is why we do philanthropy, right? So that is why it matters. And to give you an idea, this is the work that I actually am personally interested in. I'm a single mother who's adopted many children. I've done emergency foster care, well, there's not real foster care in Malaysia, but emergency guardianship, temporary guardianship. I'm guardian to many, many children. I pick up those abandoned babies. We take care of them temporarily. So this is something that's very cute, and we're working on the adoption review, adoption law reviews, and trying to push foster care as well. So just to give you a snapshot of what is happening in Malaysia with our own systems, the current challenges in Malaysia are as follows. So we have something like 5,600 children in institutions. We don't really have a foster care system. It's sort of, for me, it's sort of probation, because it's not really foster care. And it's not systematic. That's something that we're working on. We have very, very few gazetted child protectors and child protectors. We have about 2,600 for the whole country, and that's 33.4 million people, of which 1/3 are children. We're overstretched. We've been pushing the social workers bill for 14 years. We have limited focus on prevention work, especially with the lack of family support services to prevent separation in the first place, and inadequate mechanisms for family reintegration and kinship care once separation occurs. There is fragmented coordination between the social welfare department, the courts, and NGOs, and there is an absence of unified care reform framework. Before I came here this morning, I was actually at the hospital where there was an abandoned baby, and was talking to the social welfare department about what happens next. And again, we have real serious issues. Regional innovations in terms of philanthropy, and this is what I study and I work on. We have digital zakat for family protection in Indonesia. A lot of the innovation on crowdfunding, on innovative ways of looking at Islamic philanthropy and using Islamic instruments is happening right now in Indonesia. Malaysia has some too, but Indonesia is incredible. Kinship care models in India and Nepal, I know that's happening. There's pooled philanthropic funds for children through collective initiatives from Singapore as well. That's something that we need to look at, but there is more things that we can do together in terms of philanthropy. What is philanthropy? Philanthropy acts as a catalyst. It is not permanent. It is not the last resort. And philanthropy should be phased out because the problem is solved. Very much like the work that we do in non-profit organizations. Philanthropy is just a bridge. It's just a tool. It is a way for the government to take ownership and the state to take ownership of an issue because they should be funding it at the end of the day. We can look at philanthropy in terms of looking at early childhood development and parenting programs, which is something that we're looking at in Malaysia. We can talk about piloting trauma-informed foster care. I was talking about trauma-informed programs this morning to a couple of the ministers. We can invest in child-centered data and monitoring, of which we have very few, and I think there was talk this morning about data-driven evidence and monitoring. We can support disability-inclusive models, of which we are badly needed everywhere. Philanthropy is also a connector. It builds or helps to build ecosystems so that we don't work in silos. It funds backbone collective platforms like Maria's Cave, which is what I'm working on, which is access to health, but that's a different story. It enables regional pooled funds for child protection, which is why I think we're all here today. I would be very interested to see how we regionally could work on fundraising and philanthropy initiatives as well. And we were talking a little bit about that earlier. This is one of the big ones, like I said, I've been working on Zakat philanthropy for about 11 years. So we're talking about family-based care and protection, which we can do through Zakat funding. We can talk about Sedekah, which is, arms, which is to incubate pilot projects and grassroots initiatives. We talk about Waqaf, which is also another Islamic financial philanthropy instruments where we can create perpetual endowments, which has been done in many, many places around the world. We talk about CSR and ESG. Malaysia is now chairing the ASEAN, and one of the things that just came out is the ASEAN Business Report on CSR in the region, and as it's billions of dollars that have not been utilized. And so we're looking at ways in which we can make child protection and care reform one of the priorities for the region. I end this, second last. I almost end this with a quote, that the best philanthropy is not just about giving money, but it's about solving problems and then going away. So what's the call to action? It's to amplify philanthropy and charity, but it's really about amplifying systems changes, aligning philanthropy with giving and giving with child rights and family-based care. It's about building inclusive societies, building resilient families, and making sure that children thrive, not just survive. And honestly, we need to do it collectively and collaboratively. I know the word's been thrown around and bandied around a lot, but we really do. There's so much information of wealth that I think together we can form better advocacy and methods and methodologies and approaches to accessing revenue streams and getting that philanthropy work more impactful. And I'll end this with one more quote because I'm a quote person. No one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it. So let's play it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hartini, for your insights and sharing and reminding us that philanthropy is a very important part to sustain care reform. It acts as a connector, a catalyst, and a bridge. Now I would like to request Rishad to come here and please share us your insights on how philanthropy can act as a catalyst for innovation and what it takes to move promising pilots into scalable system-level change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the organizing team at BICON for providing this platform, to Anju, to Tini for setting context for this wonderful part of the session, because it's an important aspect, as we heard in the earlier sessions, about stories of innovation, stories related to kinship care, foster care, and different facets related to care reform, child protection, alternative care. I think here we are trying to understand how philanthropy, as we call it, catalyst, can actually take the clue of being a catalyst and driving some of the important aspects that are needed to take this mandate forward. I represent the Transform Neve Collective, which is a collective working in the western zone of India, supported by the UBS Optimus Foundation, essentially working on different facets of child protection, families, communities, building pathways to family-based alternative care through a collective format. And when trying to address this particular question in two aspects, one as philanthropy as a catalyst for innovation in child protection and care reform. through our learnings in the last 3 years, what we've understood is that the biggest strength for philanthropy is the ability to create space for innovation, which often can be an impediment when we are directly working with local governments or the state governments, where it is mandate driven and there are a bound of restrictions that limit the ability to focus on some kind of innovative aspects that a philanthropy supported project can kind of bring in. It helps to test new ideas, demonstrate and collaborate with varied partners, which often would be limited if you're particularly working in a geography or a zone where it only has some partners working on certain aspects of the program. And particularly within child protection, especially in India and other different parts as well, often we have followed over the years a very reactive approach where post-harm, a lot of interventions are mandated and are available. But what we essentially wanted to focus upon is the prevention aspect of working pre-harm and how that becomes an important aspect which can be a driving force through early philanthropic investment, because if they've understood that mandate, they help derive those kind of solutions and give you a little bit of a free rein to try and innovate and bring in those kind of solutions. That's why we also, in our learnings of the last 3 years under the collective that we work with, we call this role as an entrepreneurial role, because that is what an entrepreneurial project or a startup or something related to that brings in, because it helps you and gives you the scope of innovation, bringing in new practices, and also trying to ask those questions to the relevant authorities in a way that you have something to fall back on, and so that you can continue while having the central mandate and the vision in place, but giving you the learnings and the support that helps you to take it from a pilot to something scalable, along with the journey of how you can work on creating those additional resources and then taking it to an advocacy level. In the example, if I present a use case through the NEEF Collective, this is essentially what we've been doing in the last 3 to 4 years. First, working on identifying an impactful strategy, understanding the landscape at which the child protection and care reform is in India. And then we identified that we have to work on the prevention aspect and on family-based alternative care, because it's at a very nascent stage in the country. Kinship care, foster care, trying to work on building the narrative and then trying to take it to a government for more advocacy, trying to work around capacity building of stakeholders with the new statutes in place for alternative care. So it essentially started with identifying those related legacy organizations who are champions in their own right in the fields. Trying to work through different pillars of a theory of change, where we're trying to strengthen families, communities, working on equipping and strengthening nodal points, and also a lot of aspects related to family-based alternative care. Together, all of that connects back to the entire child protection ecosystem that we're trying to work upon. So this is basically the freedom or the innovation that a philanthropy allows you to collaborate with like-minded organizations and then try to take the interventions to a geography where, again, we decided that we're going to select a mix of urban, rural, and semi-urban, so that if we are working towards pilot to a replicable model, we have a flavor of all these geographies, because that is what makes the narrative building more easier when you take it to a government and tell them that, okay, we have developed a model and this is what you can replicate. Even if the whole model is not picked up and replicated, some parts of that model, even if those are replicated, I think that's a success that we understand, because child protection, we keep hearing it's a niche field, it's this, it's that, but it's very, very vital, and not just child protection or care reform on its own, but how it intertwines with other sectors, how the growth of a child, how that nurturing family environment is important for a child's health, education, and various other aspects. Keeping that in mind, I think this is an important use case that we are trying to build, so that we can take that support from philanthropy and present it towards some bit of advocacy and scale. What I would try to plot here, and why essentially it works, is the pathways to scale from the pilot to the scalable aspect is 3 important points. What we've understood and what we're trying to do here is, one aspect is important is codification. we often, through the work, we often lose track, and we are not really working on documenting a lot of the learnings that are coming from the grassroots. How do we present it in a simplified format, because there are complex terms, because a lot of times philanthropists in the room, they do not have a lot of advent and understanding of the development sector, rest alone child protection. So we need to take the onus of packing it in a way, in a very systematic and easier format, so that it invites other philanthropists' attention to these complex aspects. The second point is building that credibility by combining lived experience, voices from the ground, taking data and packing it into evidence-based impact. This is something that we are trying to do at this stage, because it becomes very vital when you try to build a narrative around advocacy. And co-creation or co-partnership, I think that really lies at the center of not just care reform, but across the diverse spectrum of sectors in the development sector, because that really adds value, that really adds strength. Because when you go to a platform and you say that you're connected to BICON, or you're working with this collaborative or different particular aspects, it gives you the power that there are other like-minded organizations and funding sources who are supporting you, and you are part of that. So that essentially builds that credibility, and with that you can take a pilot to a scale. With this, I would essentially say that philanthropy helps translate a lot of this innovation into something that can be sustained, and this is what we essentially are calling as systems change, where it should help you to outpace the ways in which you were working before to now in which you are working. I know I've taken a lot in the first part, but I'll just touch upon another aspect on sustainability, because yes, again, it's a tried and tested word. We often talk about sustainability embedded in a program, but what we are trying to do here is essentially not just for the sake of calling it sustainability, but actually trying to embed, because we know that there is a dearth of philanthropic resources. And with the changing compliance mandates, I can talk a little about India, but I'm sure there are compliance mandates across the globe in different regions. And so one of the important learnings that we've understood is that when we talk of learning, creating platforms, cross-collaboration, it's not just for the sector and people who belong to the sector, but what we are trying to do through our collective here is also take those learnings back to a philanthropist and them unlearning and learning some bits, because in a field like child protection, care reform, the attention has to also be focused upon qualitative outcomes and not just quantitative outcomes, which could be very easier when you talk about other sectors in the development sector. So this learning really helps to sustain a lot of these interventions, where the funder learns that, okay, this is the gestation period, this is how you take it forward, this has to be understood from a geopolitical concept in a particular geography when you operate. What we are also understanding that investing not just in program interventions, but also in knowledge, creating public assets, public goods that will help you document the impact in a very simplified form, which can essentially be through the monitoring and evaluation aspects that you cater to, or the different knowledge products that a group of partners in a collective can come forward to. This will help educate the people from the sector, people from outside the sector, because when we talk about an ecosystem, we have to present our challenges. We have to ensure that if we want to lead towards sustainability and have more philanthropic resources coming into the sector, we have to focus upon that communication of why it is a problem, why it is a pertinent problem, and that's how you kind of get a little more eyeballs in a complex problem like this. And there has to be that investment and that collaborative effort, where you again loop in that particular anchor funder who is supporting you to build pathways towards domestic and regional philanthropic resources. Because with the support of a name that is attached to you, you try to create those avenues right from the start and not wait towards the end of a program when, okay, now you'll have to look for some funding sources. So I think these particular aspects help build some of these sustainability pathways. And by sustainability, it's not just about calling it an exit strategy or something that you just work towards the last year of your program mandate, but it is something that you keep working towards at maybe not at the start, but in the middle, in the period in which you are able to have some kind of evidence that is coming through, and that evidence-based impact along with these particular strategies, I think that really helps you to build some of these sustainability pathways. And let's consider philanthropy as an entry point into these aspects. Because only considering philanthropy as the enabler of systems, I don't think any of those innovations will last for an eternity. So hence, blending these aspects and then using philanthropy as a catalyst, I think that is how you can build those sustainability pathways and try to bring in that kind of an impact in the lives of children. I'll take a pause here. I think we are at 9. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rishad, for your reflections and insights. Just reminding that philanthropy is not just about funding programs, but it's about funding the possibilities, the endless possibilities we have in our communities. So just looking at the time, now we have 10 minutes of time for Q&A for this important session. So I would like to open this floor for Q&A. Kindly use the Mentimeter, and also if you can just raise your hands quickly and ask our amazing speakers if you have any queries. Yeah. Any questions? No questions? You're safe? Okay, here, from the, yeah, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you to presenters for flagging those very important points. My name is Dorodi. I am with an organization called Keystone Human Services. We work on deinstitutionalization of persons with disabilities, primarily those with intellectual, developmental, and psychosocial disabilities. We talked about localization, strategic approach to sustainability, etc. I'm wondering where, in terms of philanthropy, we've seen over the years there is a focus on, for example, gender justice or climate justice and things like that, where there is emphasis given on collecting data on these intersections. So would like to hear from our panelists if there are good examples of how child protection and care reform work and investment into child care and care reform, child protection care reform has included disability-specific intersectionalities in how philanthropists have approached it, how funders have approached it. So would love to hear from your experience about that.
Thank you, Dorothy. Yeah. Hartini.
Okay, sure. I'm going to give an example that happened during COVID, because I was on the National Recovery Council, and there was actually a pitch for UNICEF's platform, actually, for care reform, and to sort of follow care for children that had been placed in institutions and who had lost one or both parents during COVID. So there was a pitch to ask for funding, which we actually got, and then our government changed, to get money to invest in the data collection platform under the Ministry of Education at that time. So we're talking about 5 years ago. So that sort of happened. We got that approved because the government, or the council at that time, which was made up of the government at that time, agreed that one of the priorities was to collect all this data. We had many issues during COVID. We actually temporarily lost the number of children who had lost one or both parents for a little while, and the data was so conflicting that the one ministry had a certain number, another ministry had a different number, and we lost kids. Nobody knew where they were. So we understood the priority then on how important it was to sort of track where the children were and stuff, and what the progress of the children are. Our Malaysian government has changed twice since then. So we're hoping to bring that up again in terms of coming up with a national platform in terms of care reform. We are on our own, I think, with NGOs and collectives, looking at ways in which, if it's very simple, just get Excel spreadsheets and put all the data on so we can follow who's getting what services, where are they, how old are they, it's by age, it's by gender, it's by need, it's by area, it's by district. So we are trying to do that. In terms of care reform and stuff, we're looking at mapping out who has the children, where are they, the kind of care that they need, trying to make sure that they have alternatives other than government institutions and government homes, which is the first and the last resort in many cases. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, so that's something that we're trying to work on. I mean, honestly, without data, we don't tell stories, and without stories, we can't advocate. And we can't advocate, you're not going to get any kind of collaboration or funding. So we understand the importance of data. I think it's as basic as that. I hope I answered your question, but that's an example.
Yeah. Thank you, Tini.
I can talk about some approach that we as an organization who works at the cusp of, who works as an intermediary through a collaborative collective format where we often, not often, but we do get the chance sometimes to influence some of the narratives and trying to work and mobilize some of the domestic family philanthropy. We as an organization have been very conscious to bring in the aspect of, this is probably known through a lot of different acronyms across the globe, but we call it JEDI, Gender, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion. Even in our organization's branding, we have those two equity bars, and we try to bring in that narrative in any of our pitches or communication or any platforms that we are at, that that kind of a lens becomes, right from the start, becomes very important, because it makes that inclusive platform right from the start and brings in the element of a funder, of a decision maker, that yes, it's important, it's pertinent that we focus on these particular aspects right from the start, and it just doesn't become an ancillary additive towards the end just because a mandate comes in, or just to get a few aspects related to some kind of a PR that we are doing. But when it's embedded at the start, you start thinking from that approach when you're doing a program design. So this is our efforts and things that we are trying to implement into different projects that we take up.
Yeah, thanks, Rishad. Before going to the audience again, we have from Mentimeter, we have a very interesting question here. Maybe you would like to answer this one, Tini. Are there any best practices and guidelines documented of child protection through philanthropy? Are there any best practices, any kind of guideline documented, if you are aware of?
Nepal, India has really good practice examples of philanthropy. Nepal does too. Indonesia does as well. Hong Kong does. Yeah, I mean, there's a few, but I don't know. Maybe you want to take this question and go into detail with India.
In terms of best practices, I think again, here, when I was also touching upon this particular topic, is when we talk about impact and we talk about communicating to a philanthropist or a funder about the success or the aspects related to what has transpired as impact in a particular project, we are taking a very conscious effort, and I think I'm hearing this through other organizations also, that we develop a compendium of best practices where you are trying to unearth case stories. That is basically what we call as qualitative impact. And that is a significant step, particularly in our field of care reform, that we need to take. There are ways in which it can be done. I don't think it really needs to be standardized, because program mandates can be different. But there are some compendiums along those lines that can be developed. And I think if we have a working group of different projects who can really pull in that kind of an expertise and try to have something together in a particular geography, if not related to program, I think that could be a first step that related organizations can pick up as an exercise. And this could also mean a bit of cross collaboration.
I'm going to add, I actually just remembered. So the Asia Philanthropic Circle, APC in Singapore, does great work in terms of funding child protection work. They fund Yayasan Chowkit, the organization I helped start. But they look at funding the center, the programs, the services, what's needed. They paid for me to be a consultant for 2 years just to map out all the different child protection needs and issues that are around. So I worked on advocacy, alternative to detention, worked on access to health services, looking at vulnerability of stateless children, working on trafficking, etc., just to get sort of a landscape view of what the different child protection issues were in Malaysia, and they funded me for 2 years, personally and the foundation as well. So there are lots of initiatives in terms of looking at collectives and collaboration in ways and really good examples of philanthropy working at its best, but I think there's always space to do more and do better. And at the end of the day, philanthropy, and I emphasize this, philanthropy and the work that we do, you know, in trying to get more people to fund our programs is just a means to an end, because the end result has to be the state owning the issues, not philanthropy being the means, the end. It's just a means to an end. So it's not permanent. It cannot be permanent. And what we do now is just find different ways in innovating and approaching philanthropy so that it just provides that pilot projects, that landscape, that view, to try out different things because the governments or the state is risk adverse.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tini. Philanthropy, it takes from a journey of being dependent towards independent, making communities independent, right?
Yeah, it's a little like Star Trek. Okay, maybe I'm too old for everybody else, but you know, it's to boldly go where nobody goes before, right? That's the quote from Star Trek. Yeah, it's trying out different things because the state is ready to do it.
And in Nepal also, just to add, foster care, national level foster care guides, it has been developed, which started from the community, but philanthropy, they supported, they invested in that journey. And today, the local municipalities, they are owning it, and they are going to scale it in other villages also. So these are the rules of philanthropy, which our amazing speakers have already shared and reflected their insights. And here, the time, 0 time, so thank you. Thank you to our speakers to finish this session on time and for your insights. And thank you everybody to put your questions and kindly use the Mentimeter throughout the day and tomorrow also to build the BICON 2025 declaration. Thank you so much.